February 13th, 1542, Tower of London. A girl, just 19, walks slowly through the icy stone passage toward her final destination, the scaffold. Shaking fingers grip a slim prayer book as she's led by guards. Catherine Howard, fifth wife of Henry VIII, is moments from execution. The night before, she had asked for the block to be brought to her chamber, spending hours rehearsing how to rest her head upon it, a chilling sign of her despair. How could someone who had been Queen of England only 80 months earlier now be marching to death? What had taken her from palace to the axe so swiftly? To understand Catherine Howard's fate, we must go back to 1540. Henry VIII, then 49, had just annulled his union with Anne of Cleves, his fourth spouse. Bloated, plagued by a festering leg wound, and hardened by repeated marital failures, the king seemed unlikely to wed again. But then came Catherine, a maid to his former wife and niece of the influential Duke of Norfolk. Catherine Howard lacked royal blood or elite education. She lost her mother young and was placed in the care of her grandmother, the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk. The household was disorderly and lax, filled with noble children getting rudimentary schooling. The girls slept together in a shared dormitory called the Maiden's Chamber. It was in that setting that 13-year-old Catherine first became involved with her music tutor, Henry Mannix. Their interactions included fondling, but reportedly stopped short of sex. Catherine would later reveal Mannix had touched her inappropriately, though she was too innocent to grasp the danger. By 15, Catherine had entered a deeper relationship with Francis Derham, her grandmother's secretary. Witnesses claimed they called each other husband and wife, and met secretly at night in the dormitory once the Duchess had gone to bed. These secrets faded into the background when Catherine joined court in 1539. Beautiful, full of life and charm, she quickly drew the king's gaze. Henry, bewitched by her liveliness and youth, called her his rose without a thorn and the jewel among women. Their wedding took place on July 28, 1540, just 19 days after his annulment from Anne of Cleves. Newly energized by love, Henry lavished Catherine with opulence, jewels, gowns, estates. Nothing was too much for his radiant young bride. In the early days, Catherine appeared content. She threw balls, danced for Henry, and ran her household with vigor. Yet behind her cheerful exterior lay a perilous secret. Henry, though smitten, was old and ailing. His ulcerated leg emitted a putrid stench, and he had to be carried in a custom-made chair. For Catherine, physical intimacy with him was likely distasteful. The contrast between her aging, foul-smelling husband and the handsome courtiers around her couldn't have been more stark. Temptation came in the form of Thomas Culpeper, a striking courtier and gentleman of the king's private chambers. Their flirtation turned into passing glances, then secret messages, and finally hidden encounters. Jane Rochford, Catherine's lady-in-waiting and sister-in-law to the late Anne Boleyn, arranged these clandestine meetings. The very woman who once testified against Anne now facilitated the peril of another queen. At the same time, whispers of Catherine's history began to stir. Francis Derham, the old lover, surfaced at court demanding a spot in her household. Frightened that her past would come out, Catherine made a fatal choice. She appointed Derham to be her secretary, hoping his silence could be balked. But this only brought the threat closer. During the summer of 1541, while the royal couple toured northern England, Catherine's liaisons with Culpeper grew more daring. Jane Rochford secured unused rooms in the various estates the court visited, giving Catherine and Culpeper long hours together as the king slept. The collapse came in November 1541 when John Lascelles, a Protestant reformer tied to the Duchess's household, decided to report Catherine's past to Archbishop Cranmer, one of Henry's most trusted advisors. Hesitant to deliver such damning news, Cranmer instead left a letter on the king's chapel seat, explaining the charges. When Henry read it, his first response was denial. He ordered a quiet inquiry, praying it was all untrue. But facts piled up. Past servants confirmed Catherine's involvement with Mannix and Derham, and worse still, her present affair with Culpeper emerged. A love letter from Catherine to Culpeper was found, ending with the fateful words, "My heart and body are at your service, and I long to be in your arms, for it would ease my soul." This note proved her guilt conclusively. Henry, who had idolized her as pure and spotless, was crushed. Accounts say he broke down before his council, sobbing and asking for a sword, so he could strike her down himself. Then, in fury, he stormed out of Hampton Court in the middle of the night, refusing to face her again. Catherine, at first unaware of her disgrace, was held in her rooms. When she learned of the charges, she ran through the corridors, screaming for Henry, begging for mercy. Guards stopped her, dragging her back to her chamber, which now served as her cell. On November 7, 1541, Catherine was formally stripped of her title and taken to Sion Abbey. During questioning, she confessed to the Dereham affair, but strongly denied adultery with Culpeper. Still, her denials meant little. Both Dereham and Culpeper were arrested and tortured. Under the pain of torment, Culpeper admitted to wanting to sleep with the Queen, though he never clearly stated they had actually done so. The men were condemned in December. Culpeper, being a nobleman, was allowed a beheading. Dereham endured the full horror of a traitor's death, hanged, disemboweled, and quartered while still alive. In January 1542, Parliament enacted a bill of attainder against Catherine, branding her guilty of treason without any formal trial. The new law decreed that a queen who failed to reveal her past lovers to the king before marriage was guilty of treason, and even wishing to cheat could be fatal. Catherine, then just 17, remained in the Tower of London for several days as Henry weighed his decision. Still wounded, he eventually signed the death order. In the time before her execution, she was said to have practiced placing her head on the block again and again, hoping to meet death with grace. February 13th, 1542. The scaffold stood ready near where Anne Boleyn, her cousin, had died 6 years before. Unlike Anne, who perished with poise, Catherine was said to be nearly incoherent with terror. Witnesses claimed she had to be carried to the block, her legs collapsing beneath her. Her last words were quiet, "I die a queen, but would rather die the wife of Culpeper." She asked the executioner to be swift. One clean stroke ended her life. Henry's thornless rose was dead before 20. Her body laid in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula inside the tower, beside Anne Boleyn's resting place. Henry banned any mourning, and all reminders of Catherine were erased from the palaces. What remains of Catherine Howard today? Often seen as just a silly girl who got what she deserved, a closer view reveals a more tragic figure. A teenager, poorly protected, married to a man 3 decades older, sick and paranoid, surrounded by schemers who used her as a ladder to power. Her story led to a reshaping of English treason law. The rule that condemned her stayed in place over 100 years. Henry never got over her betrayal. Though he later wed Catherine Parr, his final years were harsher and more tyrannical than ever. For centuries, Catherine's grave remained unmarked, until Queen Victoria ordered plaques placed inside the tower to identify the royal dead. Now, a modest stone marks where young body lies. Catherine Howard's fate is a stark example of what happens to girls caught in the grip of kings. A warning of youth without guidance, and a tale of royal cruelty in Tudor England. She is often recalled as the queen who died for love, but more rightly, she was a casualty of the ruthless power games and morals of her day. A child who briefly wore a crown, only to fall beneath the blade.